we will take the suspension. Go ahead, please, Mr. Bond.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Before I begin, please, Mr. Speaker, I wish to point out that hearing the barrage of criticisms from my learned friend, Mr. Nadir, the Honorable Mr. Nadir, I'm reminded from my historical readings that he presided over a party that was once a force we reckoned in '64 and can't even keep his own party together. Can't even keep his own party together. His party is disintegrated left, right, and center. And this gentleman wants to criticize Mr. Carl Greenidge and criticize the PNCR. I'd have none of it. You have to keep your own house together before you criticize our house. Keep your own house, man. Keep your own house in order. He's presiding over a broken house.
Anything I could speak?
Back to my presentation, Mr. Speaker, if I may, sir. You promised me...
1 second, Mr.
Yes.
Bond. Honorable Prime Minister, sir.
Mr. Speaker, I think that the honourable member there is deviating very greatly from our standard practice to be speaking of our member and his party in such terms. I think it's quite a deviation.
Honourable members, I believe, thank you, Honourable Prime Minister, thank you. In my 16 years in this House, this hasn't been the worst of debates. I think that Honourable Member Ms. Shadiq put it best a few evenings ago. She said, when you come to a crab dance, this is the House, and things have gone back and forth. But Mr. Bond, I believe your point has been made and you should move on from there.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Judiciaries serve and hold the executive branch accountable, and they help the contract and the corporate system work in a fair and impartial manner, providing a necessary element for predictability for investors. Judicial reforms thus should be and are a key component of poverty reduction and growth strategies in an increasing number of countries around the world. This quote was taken from the essay, Judiciary's Growth and Poverty Reduction, Linkages and Lessons Learned, penned by Mr. Vinay Bhargava, a former Director of International Affairs at the World Bank. My presentation today has three core thrusts. First, I believe the allocation to the sector is minuscule. Secondly, I challenge the minister's claim of access to justice by looking at legal aid. And finally, I will end with a demand for the introduction of a judicial research assistance program. However, before I get into my presentation proper, Mr. Speaker, I wish to say that Dr. Kumar Singh is one of our good sons. I believe that if he established a good working relationship with Mr. Carl Greenidge, who is APNU's chief spokesperson on finance, Guyana would be all the better for it. Mr. Greenidge's institutional memory must not be taken for granted. His intellectual prowess cannot be ignored. It is time to bring an end to one-upmanship and grandstanding practiced by both sides. As a Guyanese, I am happy that GDP increased by 5%. As a practicing attorney, I am unhappy that a pittance will be spent on the justice sector, of which I'm a member for 12 years. Budget 2014 allocates $111,655,000 to the chambers of the Director of Public Prosecutions. $1.4 billion goes to the Supreme Court of Judicial, and $288 million to the Ministry of Legal Affairs. Total it amounts to $1.8 billion, or 0.8% of the total $220 billion nationally budgetary pot bake. Paltry sums are spent on infrastructure and equipment. A total of $11,300,000 is allocated to the Ministry of Legal Affairs, and such funds are for the rehabilitation of a driveway, parts of a vehicle, parts of furniture and equipment. The Supreme Court will be allocated $216 million $270,000, and it is proposed to be spent on the construction of a land court, rehabilitation of courtrooms, and payment of retention. Also purchase of vehicle, completion of construction of magistrates' courts, and purchase of furniture and equipment. Do expect, however, courts with sewage seeping through the floors. Do expect courts that aren't soundproof. Do expect courts with no roving rooms and inadequate seating. To the chambers of the Director of Public Prosecutions, the sum of $5 million is proposed to be spent on the purchase of furniture and equipment. These allocations in totality have the collective effect of strangulating and pegging back little gains achieved by the Justice Improvement Program, referred to as the Modernization of the Justice Administration System Project, or referred to as a component of the Justice Sector Reform Strategy, which saw $25 million pumped into the sector continuously since 2006. As a matter of fact, $418,592,000 was injected in 2013. The People's Progressive Party, Civic, if they were progressive, would have had another phase of the justice sector reform strategy in place for 2014, to commence as soon as the 2013 phase would have concluded. If we look at our budgets, there's zero under this head. Why? Simply because the improvement of the delivery of justice to the Guyanese people ought to be a priority for any current administration, and the continuity of such delivery would always be a matter of course. It takes a long campaign and not a brief offensive to achieve this victory. The Justice Improvement Program must be an annual diet for the justice sector. With its absence, it takes me to the logical conclusion, therefore, that the budgetary design for the judicial sector, as enumerated by the subject minister for 2014, is palpably flawed in effect and principle. It is clear, therefore, that the People's Progressive Party Civic Administration has little interest in curing the ills plaguing the sector, ills they have created and allowed to fester and check for 2 decades. I'm not surprised that my friend Mr. Nadir is disagreeing. Nadir is disagreeing with the members of this other side. I can remember in law school, please, he was Minister of Tourism then, and I gave a poem at law school in which I painted a picture of Guyana going down the drain. Mr. Nadir came up as a guest, and he objected to what I was saying. I was in law school, a student, had no political ambitions. But it's always been the side of the government to paint a glorious picture of what Guyana is, ignoring the realities of the day. We on this side could admit readily, some have been done. Much has, however, not been done. We refuse to be divorced from reality, Mr. Speaker. That the chambers of the Attorney General, headed by my colleague, the Honorable Anand Lal, accepts this offering shows one of 3 things. First, that the chambers may not have been involved in the budgetary decision, in the budgetary process. Secondly, that the chambers, as a matter of fact, the manager of the sector, cannot craft a justice sector budget. May not be unimaginable. Or thirdly, our litigious Attorney General intends to donate to the justice sector his gains from the numerous libel lawsuits he has since filed, if he wins, of course, to improving and enhancing the sector. There is deafening silence on the following: enhancing the quality of judicial decisions, optimization of the use of human material and financial resources, protection of the young and vulnerable when they become enveloped by the sector, focused financial investment and management of the legal aid program, expansion of the legal aid program to new areas, improving the court of attorneys and capacity building within the legal aid program, drastically reducing the time it takes for victims to be compensated, curbing reputation of criminality by offenders, introduction of IT and e-protocols to the sector, introduction of the Judicial Research Assistance Program, absence of any initiatives for performance in the sector. Those are things that are missing, or remember, Mr. Nandalal. You would not understand. I will email you my brief, sir. I could email you my brief. I could email you it. These are the things that AP and you would have spent an additional $1 billion on to ensure that the system is truly accessible and strong. Might I remind this Honorable House that in 2013, I called the Minister of Finance's bluff. And here again in 2014, I've proven him a bad poker player. He bets big with a weak hand. He comes as a bearer of false promises and sauteed phrases, and I prove it to you, Your Honor. Hear what Dr. Singh says. Our government continues to place the highest priority on ensuring that our citizens have access to the justice system and that the system is strong and effective. Paragraph 52, page 52, paragraph 41119 of his budget speech. As I've mentioned above, we can't speak of access to justice without mentioning legal aid in the same breath. I must have had a chance to talk to Ms. Webster, Dr. Webster, our honorable member, and she's clarified certain things in regards to legal aid. Legal aid will receive a paltry $44,087,000 in 2014. And do you know, honorable members, that in 2013, the Guyana Legal Aid Clinic was forced to reduce its complements of attorneys by 2. Now, this is very interesting to note here. What is incredible is that the casualties of this administration's lack of forward thinking was that Ms. Tandewi Ben, top student for the Hewing Law School in her year, Ms. Marita Halley, who won multiple prizes in her year as well in law school, and Justice Bert Smith, who was respected by bench and bar to the Caribbean. Those were the casualties. Those were the casualties of not planning ahead. The legal aid submits a budget. Do you think they get the adequate budget? No. Their budget is reduced. Now, how could we speak of getting poor justice for the poor? Well, I see Mr. Sharma is gone. When we stymie the progress of the legal aid, when we stymie its expansion, its work, we must be a caring government. Ladies and gentlemen, do you know, sons and daughters of this great bountiful paradise, why they were let go? Because Paisa not been there. Every year, the same thing goes. Noble brothers of this 10th Parliament, the Guyana Legal Aid Clinic is the agency that was engineered to cater for the poor. But how can they care for the poor when the People's Progressive Party refuses to cater for them, and they in turn cannot cater for themselves? It is no wonder that in our poor circles, the PPP stands for punish poor people. And if we were to add the C to that, the C would stand for continually. That's right. I'm glad Ms. Manichan raised that point. Indeed, legal aid was started by the People's Progressive Party Civic. But it's recently, but this is the point I'm making. It makes no sense of starting and running with something and quitting halfway. They have abandoned their own child. If you've abandoned the legal aid, so there's no claim now to say that we did this and we did that. In 2013, legal aid in Region 2 had a clientele of 376 persons. I'm awakening you to realities, Mr. Minister. These are the realities here. I'm not making this up. In Region 2 saw 376 persons, which 205 were women, and 171 were men. Further 262 persons were advised in a full representation. In 2013, in Region 4, the clinic had a clientele of 1,985 persons, of which 1,325 were women. In Region 5, at 2013, the legal aid had a clientele of 65 persons. In Region 6, the clientele of the legal aid had a clientele of 216 persons, of which 148 were women and 60 were men. Between 1994 and 2014, the Guyana Legal Aid Clinic has seen a clientele of 27,909 persons, of which 959 were women and 8,310 were men. This shows that our women benefit most from this facility. The cases covered by the Guyana Legal Aid Clinic include adoption, custody and access of minors, division of property, divorce, domestic violence, personal injustice, to name a few. It's our women that attract these services. And an APNU government will ensure greater subvention. Greater subvention. You're giving nothing. We'll ensure they get greater subvention. We'll ensure a deeper partnership. We'll ensure a deeper partnership to ensure that legal aid clinics are countrywide and their doors are kept open to the poor and vulnerable. With your permission, may I remind this House that the
Honourable Attorney General, I think you're speaking later. And Mr. Williams is coming after you, so be prepared for that. Go ahead, Mr. Bond.
Yes. With your permission, may I remind this House that the Ghana Legal Aid Clinic is the bedrock upon which the noble ideal of access to justice rests. And when the APN is elected to government, when we're elected to government, the clinic in Georgetown will have its own building, and similar clinics extend to other regions, whether or not there are regular sittings of the court in those regions. Additionally, the Legal Aid Clinic will be made an organ of the Ministry of Legal Affairs, which my colleague, Mr. Basil Williams, will head. I come now.
Mr. Bond, something tells me that Mr. Williams. Go ahead.
I come now, Mr. Speaker, may I proceed unhindered, please, sir? I come now to the third thrust of my presentation. Your Honor, honourable members, how can the minister speak of a strong and effective system when judges are left without legal support staff? Yes, he's bluffing. He's bluffing. Since 1996, I may draw a comparison. Since 1996, Trinidad and Tobago started the Judges Research Assistance Program. It is now called the Judicial Research Assistance Program. It started with 6 such persons in the Supreme Court. In 2004, the service was extended to the magistracy. If I may quote extensively from the project paper for its upgrade, sir. With the proliferation of, and I quote, sir, with the proliferation of new legislation, the complexity of modern litigation, and the attention of the public to their rights and obligations, judges critically need the help of well-qualified persons to assist in the delivery of services. In the same way that a senior counsel in private chambers or the DPP utilizes services of a junior counsel. In like manners, judge research assistants are critical to the work of judges and magistrates. Whether it be the organization of case files and material, the researching of key legal arguments or legislation, the drafting of opinions, the preparations of orders, or assistance during court settings, the judge's research assistants sits at the judge's right hand, rendering invaluable service. We cannot speak of an increase in the complement of judges to reduce backlog without equipping them with the support staff they need to churn out decisions in a timely manner. This People's Progressive Party civic administration is forever guilty of pouring new wine in old bottles. You can add 20 more judges to the 20 you've added to this derelict system, and the system will still be bogged down by the problems that we set at initially. As a matter of fact, it would get worse. 20 judges cannot, and I say this, Mr. Speaker, 20 judges cannot service a population of 750,000. That is a mere 3 judges for every 1,000 in the population. A more feasible quota would be 5 judges per 100,000 Guyanese. And that is my demand, that the quota of judges be increased to 35 to serve efficiently the 3 counties. I demand on behalf of our judges and magistrates research assistance. I demand that a study be undertaken and completed in 6 months, and its implementation immediately thereafter. I demand for these assistants comparative salaries with other Caribbean jurisdictions. In Trinidad, they are paid a salary of 10,000 plus 2,000 transportation allowance. That is 12,000 TT per month, and they're also given duty-free concession. These are the steps taken if you really are interested in helping our judges and reforming our sector.
You have 5 minutes with him to wrap up, Mr. Bond.
Thank you, sir. These are the concessions any current administration, which the APNU, when we get to the government, will certainly make for our government, for our judges and magistrates. I also demand that our judges and magistrates be allowed to take notes on their laptops whilst they wait, I hope not in vain, for the day when the voice recognition will be out of the day, which is by a far speedier process than note taking, and problems such as legibility are eradicated. I've heard complaints from judges that they were told they can't use their laptops. They still have to write. They still have to write notes. They're forbidden from using their laptops. So backward, please.
With respect, though, Mr. Bond,
yes,
the
please,
law is that they must write.
The law could be changed, please, sir.
No, I know, but I need to defend the judges because they're not here. The judges are not here. The law mandates them to take the notes in written form. So
it's a law that is archaic.
Agreed. No, you can make that point, but the way that came over is as if they are not complying with some modern technology. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yet with all we have said, Your Honor, with all we have said, the honorable members, Dr. Posada asks, what's wrong with you? Mr. Damon asks, are you out of your mind? Dr. Ramson asks, what's wrong with you people? Nothing is wrong with us. We are not out of our minds. But if we leave you to your own devices and allow you to run this country like your own cake shop, a lot will go wrong with us. We will definitely go stark raving mad. Last year, the government overwhelmed us with their Guyana dream. Now they have graduated to a vision. But I tell you this much, if to quote the 16th century English proverb, if wishes were horses, beggars would ride. I consider it strange the words spewed by Junior Minister of Finance that I'm proud that he, Dr. Singh, is my boss. He was rightly corrected by Dr. Singh, who said they are colleagues. That is commendable of you, Dr. Singh, because yes, boss, and yes, massa, are for a time when Africans were slaves and oppressed, and the rambunctious Junior will do well to restore his pride for the day when his ministry delivers a budget that truly delivers for better Guyana. To assist in redesigning this member's psyche, propose you change his title from Junior Minister of Finance to Minister within the Ministry of Finance. He can't call you as boss, sir. You're right, you're a good man. You're going to correct him. I also consider flip on the off-use lines of the PPP. We know what the problems are. Some members use challenges instead of problems. This time's a favorite of Mr. Hamilton, Dr. Webster, Dr. Westford, Dr. Ramsaran, Ms. Sukai, Ms. Bishop Edgel, Dr. Ramsey, I mean, they all said it. We know what the problems are. We know what the challenges are. What we need is not your knowledge of the problems. What we need is the truth. We don't need to patronize the plight. What we need to know is a thorough investigation of the problems and the challenges you say you know exist. And what we also need for you to do is to fix those problems and challenges and put mechanisms in place and policies to prevent their recurrence. This is my conclusion, Mr. Speaker. I'm always slow to criticize, but I will tell the Guyanese people in all honesty that Budget 2014's vision for the justice sector is primitive. It is crustacean, laced with ad hoc policies and goals. It deceives the naked eye, but on a closer inspection it is found wanting. This sector is too important to be toyed with, and that's exactly what this budget does. Last year, the budget was $2.1 billion. This year it's 1.8. 2012 it was $2 billion. This year it's 1.8. How could you say you love the sector and give them less money in 2014? A good budget for the judicial service sector must be measured by one thing: performance. There are absolutely no incentives today for judges and magistrates to perform above and beyond the call of duty. No incentive. By not addressing the output and inputs of the justice sector, the PP Civic Administration cannot address the needs of the sector. They cannot address wages and salaries. They cannot address effective delivery of professional service and the registries and sub-registries. They cannot address a penetrable system where missing files are the order of the day. 850 went missing in 2010. They cannot access speedy delivery of justice and cannot make justice more accessible. The performance indicators listed in Volume 2 of the estimates are vacuous. And I further posit that some of the indicators are not compatible with the strategies employed, nor the overarching goal of quality, efficient service delivery. If I may conclude with the words from the English poet, historian and politician, Thomas Barbican Macaulay. He says, turn where you may, within or around. The voice of greater events is proclaiming to us, reform that you may preserve. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.